The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill us, this whole assembly, with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instruction or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord has heard the complaining that you utter against him, what are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses said to Aaron, "Say to the whole congregation of the Israelites, 'Draw near to the Lord, for he has heard your complaining.'" And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, "I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, 'At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God.'" In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine, flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." Thanks be to the Lord.
Hi there. Today we're starting a new series, Change Making in the Wilderness, for the next 5 weeks. Our scripture picks up the Israelites' story after the adrenaline rush of escaping the Egyptians and then watching their captors perish in the Red Sea. The reality of wandering endlessly in the desert sets in. The Israelites miss their old life, maybe even the captivity part, because they had regular food, a place to live, and a routine. They grumbled about being hungry and blamed Moses and Aaron for bringing them to this wilderness, who then immediately pointed to the Lord to remedy the situation, not us. The Lord then promises he will feed them and sends down this confusing substance that has a lot of rules attached to it. Not the simple, abundant life they thought they would have living in freedom. I'm sure a lot of you know about life changes that can make you feel pretty cranky. Bill and I, married later in life, that wasn't one of them. But we still thought we would like to have kids. So we decided after a few years that probably foster adopting from the county would be the easiest way to do that. It gets better. Even though Bill was a children's librarian and I had volunteered for Special Olympics and worked in special ed classrooms for many years and thought we had a pretty good handle on kids, we welcomed the foster parenting classes the county required that were taught at the JC over several Tuesday nights and some Saturdays. Repeatedly, we told social workers that we were very clear that we wanted to foster, then adopt the child, not just foster. They assured us that it was often the case and that the process was pretty straightforward and fairly smooth. We jumped through all the hoops of licensing, including marriage counseling for a few months, got approved, and then waited for a kid. Between us, we called it Skippy because we had no other details. Finally, about 6 months after approval, in July 2009, we came back from vacation to a phone message that 2 little redheaded brothers, ages 4.5 and 3, had been taken out of their home because of severe neglect and the drug addictions of both their parents. The social worker assured us that they seemed very bright and just needed love and structure. Everything else would fall into place. Within a few weeks, we had visited the boys, gone to meetings about them, where social workers had 4-inch thick files about them, which we were not allowed to see, signed some papers, and brought them home to their newly furnished bedroom. I remember the terror and joy of that day. The birth dad had been promised the opportunity to reunify, which meant he was given the chance to prove that he was able to responsibly raise his children on his own. For him, that meant the county would provide housing, income and medical benefits, counseling, and job opportunities for about 18 months. Also, he was entitled to visits twice a week, about 4 hours total, at his convenience. As foster parents, our requirement was to deliver the boys on time to designated offices or parks all over Sonoma County, wherever he happened to be living, leave them with him unsupervised, pick them up on time, and then deal with the fallout of having to separate them from their dad over and over again. The boys never got used to it, never wanted to leave him, cried, screamed, and kicked, and ran away from us for several minutes every time. In the beginning, the social workers would escort them to the edge of the parking lot, and when they let them go, the boys would run away from us, often down the street. The workers would not help us, saying they weren't allowed to because we needed to learn how to deal with them. Even after we finally got them strapped into their car seats, the screaming and kicking continued for many long minutes while we waited to start the car to go home. This behavior went on for all of the 18 months of reunification and well beyond. We had many rules to follow to prove that we were appropriate parents, but frankly, had never seen this level and multitude of severe behaviors over such a long period. We were told that this is what we signed up for, and were not offered any other further support. We were exhausted and felt very alone in this new life, this new wilderness. We reread the material from the classes. These behaviors were not really covered. We asked for some sort of respite, and were told that since we wanted to adopt, we needed to figure that out on our own. Family members did not live close by, and were often critical of our clear lack of parenting skills. Why else would the kids fight us so much? We quickly ran through friends and even members of this wonderfully supportive congregation. But even a few hours of respite could not mitigate the daily nightmare of dealing with traumatized children. And we were feeling more and more traumatized ourselves. But in the midst of all this, and despite all the hard times, Bill and I came to commit ourselves to being their parents and knew we could not release them back to the county, although many people suggested that. The passage where the Israelites are grumbling about getting some weird stuff to eat that had a lot of rules attached to it, and being told by Moses, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat," reminds me of this phase of our life as parents. We were not feeling the joy of parenting most days, and the little we were being handed from the county to help us was not self-explanatory or immediately helpful until we massaged it into something useful. Eventually, the county had enough documentation that their birth dad was unable to raise them appropriately, and he lost custody of them. We adopted them in December 2011 with a few members here in attendance. With the adoption finalized, we were finally able to access post-adoptive services, and with that came Parents' Place, where we could visit a monthly adoptive parent group and talk to people who really understood what we were going through, because they were as well. Their non-judgmental understanding and support helped us feel that we were not always doing it wrong, and it was wonderful to be able to commiserate without the condemnation of other parents who didn't share those experiences. We learned how to recognize the safe place in others outside of the parents group, and found some very dear friends along the way, right here in this congregation. We continued to search for new parenting skills and support, and came to understand, after many years of conversation and study, that our children's trauma made it very difficult for them to place trust in us or any adult, or allow them to love us in a straightforward way. We finally came to realize that expansive love, rather than punitive punishments, as well as the core belief that everyone must be kept safe, were the only things that mattered. About a year ago, I was asked to be part of the new change-making cohort that was starting here at Christ Church. I really didn't know what it was. Maybe a book group that met for a few weeks? But I was interested and liked all the people that were in it, so I agreed. After a few months of meeting, the group wondered aloud how long this change-making work, was supposed to last. After a deep conversation about this, about using compassion to make real changes in the community, we realized that this work never ends. We talked about the why of church. We pondered the concept of what is God's dream for each of us? Meaning, if you could do anything to help someone or improve the community, no boundaries, no limits, what would it be? Each of us had to decide that for ourselves, using our personal talents, interests, and experience as a starting point. At first, I didn't have any concrete idea of what God could possibly dream for me, so I thought about it for quite a while. I reviewed the change-making materials. I found the answer within the risk framework. Nope. Go back. There we go. It's harder than it looks, isn't it? All right. Risk framework. Realize, immerse, start, and keep going. I pondered the realize category. Identify something that calls your heart. A problem, opportunity, a seed, a crisis, a longing. It suddenly occurred to me one day that I could turn my frustration with the foster adoption system's lack of training and support for parents into the focus of being an advocate for families that have gone through the same situations. I've spent some time over the years casually talking one-on-one with other struggling parents, sharing knowledge and experience to help them navigate through the endless system of getting help for their children and themselves. It helped them in some of their most needy moments and made me feel good to think that I helped relieve some of the pressure from these desperate parents. It reminded me that even just one person helping another causes the ripple effect of love to spread endlessly. And each time, it made me feel a little bit more healed. It should be there. There it is. I know, I put this thing together. Henry Nouwen writes, "Nobody escapes being wounded. We are all wounded people, whether physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. The main question is not, how can we hide our wounds so we don't have to be embarrassed, but how can we put our woundedness in the service of others? When our wounds cease to be a source of shame and become a source of healing, we have become wounded healers." I know that I'm not inventing a new thing, and other people are already doing this work, but that's fine. Collaboration is key for change-making work, and I can bring our family's experiences to the table. At this point, I'm not sure where this journey will lead, but if it can be used to alleviate the stress of families and expedite services for them, that will only add to the greater good of our community. The challenging times with our boys continued for many years, up until last year, when prefrontal lobes began to expand. And a lot of the work and outside supports Bill and I have fought for over the years started to work in the ways they were designed to do, for all of us. Our family is experiencing a spring season of renewal, and it's pretty wonderful. Okay, now stand. I'd like to close with a Changemaker prayer, so please join me. Other way. No. Yes. Dear God, open us, guide us, encourage us, sustain us as we risk something big for something good. Amen.